I find out my wife is cheating on me, but she and Josh don't know that I know it. Josh is, or was, my best friend, by the way. I know, it's a cliché. But clichés become clichés because they happen so often. I had no idea how I was going to handle it. The thing is, I couldn't understand why he had my wife. Don't get me wrong, my wife is definitely a hottie. She's in her 30s, and even after 2 kids, she looks damn sexy in a bikini, but his wife Carla is just as hot, if not hotter. Carla is quite tall, 5 feet 7 inches tall, with red hair that hangs down to the middle of her back and green eyes that seem to be able to look deep into your soul. I learned that her measurements are 36, 23, 34, and I won't deny that she turned me on. After I found out about Josh and Heather, I did nothing for a few weeks trying to decide what to do. I loved Heather and wondered if there was any way to save our marriage. It seemed unlikely, but I couldn't know for sure until we talked. I decided to meet with her on Friday, but had to put it off until Monday. Why wait 2 days? My wife had gotten a call from a very sick friend who needed help, and she rushed over to help. I had no doubt that if I called Josh and asked if he wanted to play golf on Saturday, Carla would come over and tell me that Josh wasn't home and had gone somewhere for the weekend. My parents had taken the kids away to their lake house, so the absence of my wife and kids meant that I was going to have a quiet weekend by myself, and it could very well be the last quiet weekend I would ever have. On the way home, I stopped, bought a case of beer, and firmly decided that by Sunday evening, all 24 bottles would be empty. When I got home, I put on shorts and a t-shirt and went into the kitchen. Dinner that night would be simple. I opened a package of hot dogs and put them in a pot to boil, sliced an onion and pulled a can of baked beans out of the pantry. I dumped the beans into the pot, put it on the stove, and opened a second can of beer. I was rummaging through the refrigerator looking for mustard when the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Carla standing there. She was wearing a tank top and didn't appear to be wearing a bra. She had flip-flops on her feet. "You busy?" Partly. Cooking dinner and drinking beer." "Mind if I join you?" "Not in the slightest." "I could use the company," I said, stepping aside and letting her in. We walked into the kitchen and she sat down at the table. I knew she didn't drink beer, so I opened a bottle of Merlot and poured her a glass. "Dinner is nothing special," I said. "Hot dogs and baked beans. Pretty simple stuff." "Fits." The hot dogs were simmering and the beans were bubbling, so I turned off the fire, moved the pans to the cold side of the stove, and pulled 2 plates from the cupboard. I held one out to Carla. She made herself 2 hot dogs and put some beans on her plate. We sat down to eat, and I asked, "What brings you here? Do you know where Heather is?" "She went to help a sick friend." "I wonder when that happened." "When what happened?" "This Josh thing. He looked pretty damn healthy when he left the house. You know Josh is sleeping with Heather, right? And that they're in room 130 at Arrowhead Lodge right now? I didn't know where they were, but I've known for a couple weeks now that she was cheating on me." "How did you find out?" "I found a condom wrapper in his pants pocket when I was doing laundry. We're trying to get pregnant and we don't use condoms. But since he's cheating, I've decided not to have his baby. I don't want to end up a single mom in the event of a divorce, so I used part of my father's inheritance to hire a private investigator. They get together for long lunches, and when he calls and tells me he's working late, he's usually working on Heather. How'd you find out?" "I was in the basement working on the bookcase I'm making now." The phone rang, and I picked up the basement receiver. Heather must have picked up on the second floor a second before I did, and I heard her say the word lover just as I brought the receiver to my ear, so I listened quietly as Josh told her that they would have to skip their usual long lunch at the Marriott because he had an important meeting. I had to listen to her tell him that she would miss him and that he would have to work hard to make it up to her next time. "And you didn't do anything about it?" "I can't decide what I'm going to do. Right now I've decided to meet her when she gets home and see what happens." "Well, what are you going to do?" "You'll understand in a few minutes." I looked at her confused. "Understand what?" She stood up, walked over, and sat on my lap. "I see the way you look at me, and I know damn well that if we weren't married, you'd be after me. We may both still be married, but we don't have to be faithful to Josh and Heather anymore. They released us from that obligation." She put her arm around me and her hand slid up my leg, under my shorts and to the waistband of my panties. I'm going to take my revenge to the end. Even though we decided to have a baby, I managed to make excuses not to have sex during my fertile period just in case. I went to the doctor and had a diaphragm put in. How badly do you want to get back at Josh? Why do you ask? I intend to get back at him hard. I'm at my most fertile right now and my diaphragm is in my purse. That's exactly what it means. Carla was right. It would be full-blown revenge if Josh raised my child thinking it was his child. I smiled, running my hand under Carla's tank top and discovering that she was indeed braless. On Heather's side of the bed. That's where I want you. On the side of the bed where Heather is lying. She got up off my lap and said, "Come on." We both hastily undressed as we reached the bedroom. I pointed to Heather's side. Carla smiled and said, "You take me on Heather's side, and then we'll go to my place, and I'll take you on Josh's side." Deal. We were both sweaty and out of breath as I stepped out of her and fell onto the bed next to her. Carla propped herself up on her elbow and looked down at me. I can't believe this. I just can't believe it. Heather can get it. But she wants my husband? We fell asleep cuddled together. In the morning, I woke up before Carla, and as I looked at her, I couldn't help but think about the fact that my cheating with Josh's wife had put me on the same level as Heather. Of course, one could attribute it to Heather's cheating that freed me from my vows. What she did, I can do, right? What's good for the goose is good for the gander, right? But for me, the big thing was that I cheated on my marriage. I couldn't claim to be moral in my conflict with Heather. True, she didn't know I cheated, but I did. I hadn't noticed Carla was awake when she said, "You look pensive. What are you thinking about?" I told her. She replied, "I made the same promises you did when I married Josh, so I guess that makes me a cheater too, but I don't think so. Josh made the same vows I did and then broke them. To me, that means we had a contract, and if we were practicing law, if I remember correctly from my business law classes, Josh broke the contract, and the contract can be declared void. I know marriages aren't treated that way, but that doesn't change the fact that Josh and I had a contract and he broke it with me, which means, at least to me, that I am no longer bound to honor it. You have to look at your marriage the same way. You don't cheat on the one you love. You only do what her breach of contract allows you to do. Enough of this. Feed me, and then we should go to my place and reconsecrate the side of the bed where Josh slept and work on getting me pregnant. If she wasn't pregnant by the time we fell asleep at her house, it wasn't because we weren't trying hard enough. I don't think the last 2 times we made love did any good. In the morning, she asked when the kids would be home, and I said around 6. She fed me steak and eggs for breakfast, telling me I'd need the energy if I was going to do her any more good that day. We broke up around 4 so I could head home and be there in case my parents arrived earlier than expected. Before I got home, Carla asked me if I had made a decision, and I admitted that I hadn't. Are you a good enough actor to pretend everything's okay? I don't know. Why would you do that? Because, in my opinion, the best revenge is to keep doing what we did over the weekend. I want to keep doing that until I get pregnant. Besides, you have to think about your kids. Divorce will tear you away from them because here the courts always give custody to the mother. You might be able to see them every weekend, but that will only be if Heather isn't too mad at you to find some reason that you can't see them. My advice is to deal with the bitch. Live life as usual, except you and I will party hard every chance we get. I doubt that, Carla. Sooner or later, the traitors are going to get caught. If they catch us, it reduces our chances of holding the high ground in any conflict. We caught them because of stupid mistakes. You found out about Heather because they were both stupid enough to use home phones to communicate. I found out about it because Josh was sloppy enough to bring the evidence home in his pants pocket. We're not going to give that kind of chance. We'll buy a couple of track phones at Walmart and use them to keep in touch, and so our spouses won't accidentally find them. We'll leave them in our desks at work. We'll always know when they're meeting, and we'll get together at the same time. No, we can't do that. If Heather calls and says she has to work late, I'll have to babysit, and if they do it at lunchtime, we can't do that either because I can rarely take a long lunch. You do work late sometimes, don't you? When you do, she'll have to be home to watch the kids. I play cards with a few friends from college every Wednesday night, and I sometimes stop for a drink after work with people I work with, and Josh is used to it. Another thing we can do is tap into our phone lines so we know what they're talking about. You in? You've thought this through, haven't you? Maybe I'm missing something, but if we both work together, I think we can cover all sides. Are you sure you want to do this? I'm absolutely sure. Like I told you in the beginning, I want revenge on Josh. I gave him everything I have, and he stabbed me in the back. I spoil that son of a bitch to death, and he cheats on me. No way in hell I'm letting it slide. My idea of perfect revenge is to let him raise another man's child, and what could be sweeter than having that child's father, the husband of the woman he's cheating with, in bed? I want revenge, too. I think I can get revenge by seeing this asshole raise my child, but I'm not sure I can pretend to be a loving husband to a wife who cheats on me. You'll be stimulated by your mistress. Are you sure? For the last 48 hours, you seem to have enjoyed the hell out of what I've given you. You can have as much sex as you want, anytime you want, for as long as you want me. You know an offer like that is damn hard to refuse. I certainly hope so, and that's not all. Josh wants 2 kids, a boy and a girl, and I want them both to have the same daddy. What if the first child is a girl, for example? I know he'll want a son. Are you ready to keep trying? Yeah, until we get caught. We just have to make sure that doesn't happen. Oh, and one last thing. Are you going to be able to act natural around Josh? It's going to be hard not to smirk knowing that I'm going to try my hardest to give him a baby to raise, but I think I can handle it. I think I'll stay after work on Tuesday with the girls. What a coincidence. I'll be working late on Tuesday. My parents dropped the kids off at 7:30 and said they hadn't eaten yet, so I took them to Mickey DC and wasn't at all surprised when they said they wanted Happy Meals. After we ate and got home, Heather asked where we were and said sharply, "Why didn't you call me and ask me if I wanted to have dinner with you?" You didn't tell me when you were coming back. You didn't call me on my cell phone and tell me you were back, I replied just as sharply. She threw me an angry look and went to say hello to the kids. While Heather put the kids to bed, I started to figure things out. I learned how to tap the phone line with a voice recorder and decided to buy 1 or 2 on the way home from work the next day. I would buy 2 to put not only on my line, but also on Josh's line. I'll have to call Carla and make arrangements. I noticed that Heather didn't shower before going to bed. She may have showered before coming home, but then again, maybe she didn't. When Heather went to bed, I cited an upset stomach and told her that maybe we could have sex the next day. At 3:20 on Monday, my secretary announced that Mrs. Carla Marvis wanted to see me, and I asked Shelley to let Carla in. Carla came in, closed the door behind her, came up to me and kissed me. "It's too bad you have a secretary sitting outside your door. If she wasn't there, I'd lock the door, and you could do me right here on your desk." "If you can hold it for 10 minutes, she goes home at 3:30. Wow, I was just kidding, but I could easily kill 10 minutes. She opened her purse, pulled out her cell phone, handed it to me, and told me she had already written her number in it. The plan for tomorrow is that I'll run to the Marriott at lunch and get a room. I chose the Marriott because to get to the rooms, you have to go inside and walk down the hallway. No exterior doors so someone could see us enter. I'll call you and give you the room number. I'll finish work at 4:30 and go straight to the room. When you get there, go into the bar and have a drink, and if anyone there recognizes you and sees you, they'll think you just stopped for a drink on your way home. After the drink, you come to the room where I'll be waiting for you naked. How does that sound? Sounds like a great plan. On the way home, I'll pick up what we need to tap our phones. When would be a good time for me to come over and do that? It's already done. I went online and found out how to do it, and there's a voice recorder I can use. At this point, Shelley poked her head through the door and said, "I'm leaving. I'll see you in the morning." When the door closed, Carla got up to lock the door, and when she turned to me, I had already taken off my underpants and underwear and was clearing the table. Carla laughed and said, "Impatient. I like that in a man." It was quick, no-frills sex. Putting on her panties, she said, "This will keep me going until tomorrow, but you'd better come back prepared for a long and energetic evening. Maybe you should beef up your vitamins." On the way home, I stopped at the Radio Shack and bought 2 tape recorders and 6 extra cassettes. I got a second tape recorder so I can listen to the tapes in my office. I'll save the tapes that have something of the two lovers on them until the day I tell the judge the reasons for the divorce. When I got home, Heather had already made dinner and brought wine, which was a good sign of her loving mood, and I was surprised by it. Had she spent the weekend sleeping with her lover and now she was coming home wanting more? Was she turning into a nymphomaniac, or was she just enjoying her ignorant, as she thought, husband after being with her lover? Maybe someday I'll find the answer to that question. Sex with Heather was always good, and she enjoyed doing it all. If Carla was being honest and not just playing on my ego when she said I was bigger than Josh, I have to wonder what he had that Heather thought I lacked. Another question that I might have an answer to someday. When dinner was over and the kids were parked in front of the electronic babysitter, Heather said, "You know you have work tonight, right?" "Oh, and why is that?" "You have to make up for last night." "I'll do my best." "You're always amazing, my love." I was going to say, "Then why are you sleeping with Josh?" But I didn't. While Heather read to the kids, I went down to the basement, found where the phone line runs, went into it, and hooked up the tape. Heather doesn't leave for work until an hour after I do, and I figure that's when she and Josh will be talking. I could be wrong about that. Heather had a cell phone, and of course they could talk on her work phone while she was at work. I was betting that the call I overheard was an indication that they were talking while she was home. We managed to have sex 3 times that night, which was a rare event for us. We had sex 3 or 4 times a week, but usually only finished once, though sometimes twice. Here's another thing to think about. The warning bell rang just after we finished our 3rd time. We were lying next to each other when Heather said, "Have you ever thought about the fact that we could have another baby?" "Not realistically," I said, wondering if it had anything to do with Josh. "In fact, I'm considering the idea of getting a vasectomy so you can go off birth control pills and we'd still be safe." "Why don't you want more?" "We had Mike and Anna so soon after we got married that we didn't have a chance to go anywhere and see anything. Now we are still young enough for that when Mike and Anna become independent. Little kids will preclude that. Besides, right now we need the income from your job. We'll be hurt by you leaving your job because of the pregnancy." I had some really bad thoughts going through my head. I'm sure Heather knew that Carla and Josh had decided to try for a baby. Did Heather want Josh's first child before Carla got it? Was there something Heather had against Carla, or was it just Heather trying to claim her lover? Either way, it made me think that I couldn't go through with Carla's plan. I think I'm going to have to dump Heather pretty damn soon. And then, a really, really bad thought popped into my head. Were Mike and Anna even mine? I had to find out. I fell into a very restless sleep. And the day after the grueling session in room 202 of the Marriott Hotel, I voiced my concerns to Carla. "I can't even guess what you should do," Carla said. "Talk to her about Josh now before she gets pregnant?" "Of course, she could already be pregnant and getting ready to dump the baby on you. I know what I'd do, but I'm not a man and I'm not you." "What would you do?" "I'd just tell her I don't want any more kids, and just in case, I'd start wearing a condom until I get a vasectomy. If she does get pregnant, that's when I would have a confrontation. I would say we probably need a DNA test to see if it was mine or Josh's. That should make her flounder." "If I get a vasectomy, it'll ruin our revenge plan. Just don't do it until I'm pregnant. It'll be a failure because I want all my kids to have the same father. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe Heather was just probing you. You said you didn't want to, and that will make her say no. We'll just never know until she comes up to you and tells you the rabbit died." She looked at her watch and said, "We have a couple more chances for you to make me a mom." I stopped on the way home and bought a bunch of condoms, and that night when Heather wanted sex, I pulled out one of the condoms and started putting it on. What was that for? "I've decided to use them until I get a vasectomy. I really don't want kids anymore." "So take it off." "I hate the feeling. I'll stay on the pill and use spermicides until I can adjust to the diaphragm. That way we'll be perfectly safe." Hate feeling them? I thought, finishing rolling it on. Heather was a virgin when we got married, and I'd never used a rubber band with her. When had she realized she didn't like feeling them? And with who? Whatever it was, it only solidified my decision to find out about the paternity of my 2 children. Then I remembered that it was because Josh used rubbers when he slept with Heather that Carla realized Josh was cheating on her. I was still going to get tested. If you don't have spermicide yet, I'll use the condoms I bought today. I don't have any, but I'll get some tomorrow and make an appointment for my diaphragm. I don't want you to get a vasectomy. I want to keep that option open in case you ever change your mind. I left the rubber band off, climbed onto the bed, and lay on it. When I got back to the bed, Heather was lying on her side, sleeping. It was a good time to go down to the basement and check the tape recorder, a couple unimportant calls, and then, "Hello? Good morning, sweetheart. You miss me?" "Sure, you know I do." "Are we having lunch today?" "Yeah, but I think our lunch meetings will be over soon unless we find someplace cheaper. These motel rooms are killing my family budget. I can't keep pulling from it. Sooner or later, I won't have enough money to feed my family, and I'll know what the reason is. I'll try to figure something out. Wednesday night is card night at that girl's house. Have you figured out a way out of the house yet?" "Not yet, but I'm working on it. I'm crossing my fingers. I need more from you than I get in a 45-minute lunch break." "Me too, love. Talk to you tomorrow?" Sure. Bye. Bye, baby." I almost threw up when I realized I'd washed Heather after she'd let Josh use her this afternoon, but I managed to restrain myself. I found it interesting that not only was the slut cheating on me, but she was paying for the room. Yeah, and how Carla would take it when she heard she was a slut, according to her hubby. The only thing I knew for sure as I walked up the steps from the basement was that Heather wouldn't be able to leave the house on Wednesday night. On Tuesday, arriving at work, I pulled my cell phone out of my desk drawer and called Carla, and when she answered, I said, "Good morning, whore." "What? Who the hell is this?" "Have you forgotten your children's father's voice yet? And besides, who else has that number?" "Bob, why are you calling me a whore?" "Listen," I said, bringing the recorder to the phone and hitting the play button. After card night was played, I said, "I know from reliable sources that you are a whore. A husband knows these things about his wife, right? When the time comes, I'll kill the bastard." I scrolled through the rest of the tape to her since she obviously hadn't checked her recorder. Carla asked what I was going to do. "I think I'm going to have to work late on Wednesday, but I won't let her know until it's time to finish work. She won't have time to call a babysitter. Did you hear Heather's paying for the room? Doesn't surprise me. Josh has always been cheap. I figure if you're going to work late, I'll skip my card night and we can get together. I'll call you tomorrow and set it up." Wednesday at breakfast, Heather asked me if I had plans for the evening. I said I didn't and asked what was up. "The girls from work were talking about having a couple drinks after work and socializing. I can't do that unless you watch the kids." "That's not a problem." I kissed her and headed off to work. I walked into the Marriott, got a room, and when I got to work, I called Carla. Heather finishes work at 5, so at 4:40 I called her and told her I would be late for work. "There are some issues with the Henderson contract, and they need to be resolved before Nathan goes to meet with them tomorrow morning. Sorry for the late notice, but I really can't leave now. So don't wait up for me. Love you. Bye." Pleasantly exhausted, by nightfall I was back home. Good thing Heather was already asleep, because if she had gotten up and wanted to play, I'm not sure I would have been able to handle it. For the next 5 weeks, Carla and I met on average twice a week, making sure we always knew in advance what Josh and Heather were doing. It was during this 5th week that Carla said, "Congratulations, Dad. How about rubbing your baby's mother's eyes out?" How does Josh feel about that? He doesn't know yet. I had to tell the baby's father first. Now I can tell Josh. "You know," I said, "the one thing we haven't done is go away together for the weekend. I think we owe it to ourselves to do that for once to celebrate the pregnancy. We just need to do it, but in a way that doesn't make the two of them put 2 and 2 together and come up with the right answer." Funny you should bring that up today. Josh has to fly to San Diego to settle some business with his father's estate. He's going this weekend to visit some relatives before heading to the lawyer's office on Monday. If you figure out a way to get away for the weekend, we can go somewhere and no one will have any reason to speculate about it. I think I can handle it. I picked up my cell phone and called my brother who lived in Akron. I asked him to call my house right after I left for work in the morning and tell Heather that I needed to visit him for family business over the weekend. I told him I would call him later and explain what was going on. He said he would take care of it, and we said goodbye. I turned to Carla and said, all that was left was for us to decide where we wanted to go. The next morning, Heather called my cell phone about 5 minutes after I left the house. Heather, you need to call Bill as soon as possible. He has an urgent family matter and he needs to talk to you. I'll be right there. I waited until I got to work and called Bill. I told her that Brian, his son, needed a kidney transplant, and I needed to know if you would agree to donate a kidney, and if so, would you come in to check compatibility? So, what's the deal? I explained the situation to him, and he told me that I could count on his help anytime I needed it. I knew I could count on him because he hated cheating whores. He was a single father because his wife cheated on him. He kicked her out and stayed with the kids when Martha died in a car accident. I called Carla, told her how everything worked out, and we agreed to go away for the weekend. I called Arrowhead Lodge and was even able to book room 130. Very apropos, I thought. At 2 o'clock, I called Heather and told her I was flying to Akron. I would stop by the house and pack my bags. My flight leaves at 8, and I need to be at least a half hour early to check in. I don't mean to sound selfish, but I hope your kidney doesn't fit. I need you to have all your parts so we can go all the way to old age together. Damn it, Heather, the way you say that makes me think you really love me. You better not have any doubts about that, Bob. Not even a little bit. If you only knew, I thought as I said goodbye and hung up. When I pulled into the house, Heather was waiting for me in what she called her fuck me costume, naked, with slip-on shoes. Do you have time to charge me while you're gone? Since I really didn't need to rush to catch a non-existent flight, I said I had time. Heather was lying on the bed, and as I was getting dressed, she said, on the phone you sounded like you doubted I loved you. I was just kidding, baby. I know exactly how much you love me. Yeah, sure, you can see that every time you have Josh, I thought. I don't want you to ever doubt that love. Never. The weekend with Carla was exhausting, making love and going to bed. Wake up in the morning, make love, then go to breakfast. We go back to the room and make love until lunchtime. We eat and then go back to the room and make love. Go out to sit by the pool for a while, then come back and make love. We go out to dinner, have a few drinks and dance, and then we make love again. We do it again the next day, and then again on Monday morning. We promised each other that we would do it again, and then we went home. When I got home, Heather was at work, so I went down to the basement and checked the tape recorder. First thing Friday morning, Bill called. A couple minutes after she hung up, she got a call from Josh. Have you figured out a way to free yourself up for the weekend? I'd love to spend a couple days with you uninterrupted. No, Josh, I couldn't think of anything. And the truth is, I don't want to think of anything. What's the matter? Why? You know, there's this guilt about what I'm doing. I love Bob, and he deserves better than to have a cheating wife. I was going to tell you that it's over. I need to commit to Bob. Come on, Heather. You've been making love to me for almost a year. How could you do this if you love him as much as you say you do? First of all, I need to correct you. I've never made love to you. The only man I make love to is Bob. Bullshit. No, Josh, it's not bullshit. I love this man, and I try to show him I love him every chance I get. If you love him so much, why are you sleeping with me? The thrill of it. The thrill of doing something illegal and forbidden. It was a great thrill for me to go home and make love to Bob after I slept with you. It gave me some huge ecstasies. Did it turn you on that you gave him a few wet seconds? If it did, why not keep going? I never gave him wet seconds. I was always clean when I made love to him. Bullshit, Heather. You never showered before you left the motel. I keep a travel bag at work, and it has everything I need for a shower. Bob's never even gotten close to smelling the slightest trace of you. No, Josh, I'm going to end this before we get caught. I love Bob, and I don't want to lose him. Just be glad you got me drunk the first time. Maybe so, but you weren't drunk the other times. That depends on what you mean by drunk. I was drunk from the excitement of making love to Bob. I wanted to see if the thrill and excitement would be there if I did it sober, so I let you do it a second time, and that was the only reason I kept doing it. We got away with it for a little over a year, but I just realized that the feeling I have for Bob after being with you is not worth what it will cost me if we get caught and I lose Bob. Have fun in California, Josh, and when you get home, don't call me. Bye. Interesting, I thought, pulling out the tape and inserting a new one. I unpacked and went to work. Around 11, I called Carla, and when I said, "Hi," she said, "I miss you. Is everything okay?" "You're my sexy. Yeah, I want you to listen to something." If this is Friday's phone call, I've already heard it. What do you think? Sounds like she pulled her head out of her ass and realized she might lose you. What are you gonna do? I've already decided that I'm only going to stay with her until the kids turn 18. And I don't see anything that would make me change my mind. If she meant what she said to Josh, she'll be easier to hold on to, but the trust is gone. Even if she breaks up with Josh and they never meet again, how do I know that somewhere in the future she won't start missing the thrill and excitement of cheating and hook up with some new guy? You can always hit her with the words, "If you're really over Josh, maybe we can move on, but you won't get a second chance." No, I can't. That would give away the information that I have a wiretap on my phone, and like I said, the trust is gone. I need a way to keep tabs on what she's up to. Besides, she knows me and realizes that if I knew, I would share it with you. She could tell Josh that, and it would make him think twice, and we don't want that. Is that your roundabout way of saying we're going to keep this up? You heard the conversation. They've gotten away with it for a little over a year, and you and I have only gotten away with it for a couple months. They owe us another 10 or 12 months, and then, of course, there's penalties and interest that could make it even longer. I'd like to see that happen. Epilogue. Carla and I continued to see each other an average of twice a week until her 7th month. She wanted to continue, but her belly was so big that I couldn't make love to her without hurting her. That's right. You have to take care of babies. The ultrasound showed that Carla was having twins. She gave birth to 2 beautiful little girls. Just as she predicted, Josh wanted a son. So 2 years after the twins were born, she got pregnant again, and this time the ultrasound showed it was a boy. We made love until her 8th month, and then we broke up. We both felt we had gotten away with it long enough, and if we were caught, Carla would become a single mom with 3 kids to raise, and neither of us wanted that. As Carla put it on our last time together, the goal was to get back at the cheater by giving him someone else's children to raise. To do that, I need to stay married to him. Josh got a promotion that required him to move, and I haven't seen or spoken to Carla since they moved. However, I think of her often and with love. It's been 6 years now, and as far as I know, at least judging by the phone tap, Heather hasn't contacted anyone else. Then again, she and Josh had been doing what they were doing for over a year, and I had no idea. She might have wised up and stopped using the house phone for forbidden communication, but I've been watching her closely, and so far I haven't seen anything to indicate that. She's doing her best to spoil the hell out of me, and I'm critically rethinking my plan to leave her when the kids turn 18. That will be another 4 years for Mike and 5 for Anna. I'll just wait and see.